Hello, Internet. It is I, Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Recap. So, October. Hmm. October. Oof. So, as you know, the last few months have been very weak when it comes to the box office. August and September both had very few positives and a whole lot of negatives. Okay, it was a very sad time for movies. So one would think October would be an improvement because after all, October did have a big blockbuster esque movie in the form of Black Adam. It was built up as a blockbuster, had a blockbuster sized budget, ad campaign, part of a blockbuster genre. It was essentially a summer blockbuster in October. So it had that, which is something August and September really didn't have. So the big question is, was October a major improvement? Did things finally go up? Did things finally, get better after a few depressing months? The answer to that is not really. I mean, technically it was better, but not by much. Not by much at all. Because sure, Black Adam was by far and away the biggest, hit of the month. But the fact that the biggest hit of the month is a movie that's probably not going to break even and make money, make profit, that shows we have problems. Big problems. And what's really sad is that I argue that the biggest hit of October didn't even come out in October at all. No, it came out the last day of September, and that movie is Smile. And let's talk about Smile, because its performance has been crazy. It's been very unexpected, to say the least. Now, I already discussed Smile in my September recap, but I'm going to keep it brief here. So, Smile came out September 30th, had good reviews, good word of mouth, solid ad campaign. And because of all that, it had a nice opening weekend of 22.6 million. Very, very solid for September, just horror movies in general. So I was thinking, all right, that's good. It's probably going to have an average run, especially with Halloween Ends coming up. That's direct competition. So I was thinking, all right, it's going to end around 50 to 60 million. Yeah, that's not what happened. Not at all. This movie just destroyed my predictions because it had a second weekend drop of 18%, which is insane in this day and age. And then after that, it just kept going. Like, look at these drops: 32, 33, 36, 27. The 27 one is really significant because this is after Halloween. Like, the spooky month was over. So one would think all horror movies would die out after Halloween, but not this one. Not at all. In fact, it's held so well that as of, well, technically 2 days ago, as I'm recording this, and as I'm going to publish this, it has now reached 100 million domestic, which is something I never thought would happen. Ever. It's definitely the least likely movie to reach that mark. So, yeah. So, it was like, how did this happen? How did this do so well? Well, after seeing the movie, because I did see it, it was like the 30th on a Sunday. I saw it the same day as Black Adam. Actually, I saw Black Adam first, but then I saw Smile. I'll talk about Black Adam later, what I thought about that. But Smile, really, really solid movie. I mean, it wasn't the greatest horror movie ever. It's not going to break new ground or anything. But it was a solid horror movie, an effective horror movie. It was a horror movie that earned its jump scares. Okay. It was just a really solid movie. And arguably, like, really the only horror movie most people saw in October. I mean, sure, people saw other horror movies in October, But this was like almost like built up as like the horror movie of the season. And that's what happened, and it did fantastic. And if there's anyone smiling like ear to ear right now about this result, is Paramount. Because boy, they could have made a big mistake with this movie, because initially this was supposed to be a Paramount Plus movie. I'm not joking about that. That was the initial plan, was for this to just get dumped on Paramount Plus. But they did test screenings, and the test screenings were so good, they were like, wait, we have something here. We can make some money off this. We have a golden goose. And so they were like, okay, no more Paramount Plus, theatrical only. And to really show how confident they were, they released like a teaser of the movie in front of Top Gun Maverick, the biggest movie of the year. That's when I first found out about the movie. I imagine that's how most people found out about this movie. And ever since then, it was just a positive train, and that positive train led to big money. So, and Paramount, they've been killing it this year. I mean, with this, Jackass Forever, Scream 5, Lost City, Sonic 2, and Top Gun Maverick. I mean, sure, they had like Positive Fury. That movie had no chance anyway. But yeah, 2022 has been the year of Paramount, no doubt about it. This has been their year, and this movie just added to their year. So, congratulations, Smile. You absolutely deserve this W. You are the biggest, the real winner of October, despite the fact that you came out like a day before. So, yay. Hooray for good movies. Now on to actual October movies. Well, actually, before we do that, Terrifier 2. Let's talk about that. So I didn't do a prediction video on it because it kind of had like a weird release, so I just didn't bother. But it is notable because it did pretty darn well considering it's somewhat like limited run. Like it wasn't exactly a movie that was like advertised everywhere. It was kind of like more low key release, but made nearly 10 million. Well, made like $10 million. I mean, to the point where it was like in the top 10, and I'd say that's pretty darn good for a movie that didn't have like that much PR surrounding it. And obviously, it was a perfect fit for October because again, October is the spooky month. So yeah, it makes perfect sense to release a movie like this in October. And I guess thanks to like organic word of mouth, like organic marketing, it did pretty well. Definitely one of the bigger success stories to come out of October. So, yeah, I just want to mention Terrifier 2 before we actually get into the other October movies. Okay. Now, on to the stuff I actually talked about. So, October 7th, Amsterdam. Oh, dear God, Amsterdam. Ooh. I mean, what do you want me to say? I mean, I knew the writing was on the wall like the week or two before it came out because, you know, a movie like this with the cast it has, and again, the cast here, very, very, very impressive. Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, John David Washington, Chris Rock, Anna Taylor-Joy, Zoe Saldana, Mike Myers, Michael Shannon, Taylor Swift, Rami Malek, Robert De Niro. Incredible cast. And we have the director David O. Russell made American Hustle and Silver Linings Playbook. You would think this would be a big awards movie, right? This would get that awards buzz. This would get like great reviews, and that great reviews would translate into really good box office. No, reviews were terrible, and that killed any chance of awards. And by extension, it killed any chance of success. Because when it came out, it just did horrendous. But with my prediction, I predicted it would open between 6 and 7 million. Like initially in my head, I was thinking this might reach the teens. Then I had to lower it as more reviews came in. Okay, maybe 10, but then like by the time I made the video, I was like, okay, 10 is will never happen. So I predicted between 6 and 7 million for its opening weekend, and it did that. Hit right in between 6.4 million, which I mean, for me is good. I was accurate, but it's certainly not good for the movie. And its legs have been pretty abysmal too. It's only made like 40, no, for 40. This movie wishes it made 40 million. 14 million. And it's pretty much out of theaters. I think it's on streaming now, which is crazy. It's only been like a month. But yeah, it's oof. Wow, it just fell out of theaters like 57%, 70. It was gone by the end of October. So it made like 27 million worldwide on a budget of $80 million, which is downright atrocious. In fact, I think it's this movie, like including like advertising and stuff. I think it's bound to lose like 100 million. Last I checked, which has to is easily ranks this as one of the biggest bombs of the whole year, next to movies like Moonfall and The 355 and Lightyear. Just an absolute disaster right here. Undisputed disaster. Like, this is the undisputed L of October. I mean, sure, some movies technically made less money, but this had a somewhat big budget, and it did, and that just makes it all even worse. So, yeah, Amsterdam, an absolute fail, an absolute bomb, nothing else to say. It died a death. So, yeah. So the other movie that came out the 7th was Lyle, Crocodile, which, although is technically a bigger hit than Amsterdam, still didn't do very good in the grand scheme of things. But one thing I will mention is that when I made my prediction video on it, I realized right after uploading it and publishing it that with Lyle, like his whole thing is like one of his things, like he really likes taking baths and stuff. I was thinking, damn it, I could have made a Belle Delphine joke. It was right there. The opportunity was there, and I missed it. And I was so mad. I was so pissed. That was such a missed opportunity to make that joke. So I just wanted to mention that because that's how I felt after um, publishing the video. But with Lyle, Crocodile, I mean, my predictions were extremely accurate. Like, I predicted it would open between like 10 to 12 million, and it hit 11.4. So like, I was right on the money. And I think its final total was like, I predicted between like 30 and 40. It's hit 37. So again, accurate. But the thing is, these numbers are really, really weak. Considering one, the movie cost like $50 million, and two, this movie had zero competition. The last family movie that came out was DC League of Super Pets, and that was like in July. And the next family movie coming out is gonna be Strange World, and that's like Thanksgiving. So there's literally no excuse for this movie doing as lackluster as it did, as it is doing at this moment. But I guess the main reason why I think it did so bad, or not bad, like it did so lackluster, is that no one cared. It was the whole movie was kind of like a nothing burger. Like there's nothing to get excited about, nothing to get angry about. There's nothing. It just had, again, no one really gave a shit about the movie. And as a result, it just did bland. Even like negative PR would have been better than just silence. A lot of the for a good amount of situations. So yeah, Lyle just kind of existed, and it came out, and people were like, "Oh, okay," and then they forgot about it soon after. So yeah, so Lyle, Crocodile, it reached my predictions, it reached my expectations, but my expectations weren't exactly high to begin with. So Yeah, I'd call it a bit of a miss. Not as big of a miss as Amsterdam, but still a miss in the grand scheme of things. Because again, no competition, and it still didn't do good. There's no excuse at that point. So yeah. So yeah, that first weekend of October was real sad. The depression from September definitely carried over to October, at least the first weekend. But after this, things do get better, kinda, with the next weekend, which was Halloween Ends. Oh, let's talk about that. Halloween Ends. This was, this was built as the end of Halloween, the last Halloween movie, the end of Michael and Laurie's story, right? You know, this whole like new trilogy started in 2018, then you had Kills, and you have Ends, right? So, considering how, Halloween 2018 did really really good, like stupid good. About to show you it. Here it is. You know, made like opened to 76 million, which is insane for a horror movie, and it made like over 255 million worldwide, 159 million in the states. Spectacular, by far and away the biggest Halloween movie of all time. And with Halloween Kills, which had the deal with you know marketplace that was like rebuilding itself, due to COVID, and also its simultaneous release on Peacock, still did all right. Didn't do super good, but still opened nearly $50 million, made like almost 100 million in the states. That's still decent, if although unspectacular. But one would think with Halloween Ends, okay, like pandemic's not an issue anymore when it comes to the box office. It's a non-issue because many movies have proven it's a non-issue this year, and even with No Way Home, like last year. And sure, this also had a simultaneous release on Peacock, but that didn't really hurt, Kills all that much. So I was thinking, okay, this has a better chance to succeed, and that did not happen. And with my predictions, I had a wide range. I predicted between 40 to 50 million dollars. I was thinking initially, I was like, it could reach Kills, but the more I looked into it, I was like, it probably won't. So I'm gonna kind of leaning more towards the lower half of the scale. And it barely reached 40. Like it just made it to 40 million. So it technically reached my expectations just barely. But after this, Jesus fuck. I can't even explain how horrific it did after this. I mean, like, with its opening weekend numbers, I already noticed the red flags. The red flags were popping up a lot. Like, it had a better Thursday preview number than Kills, which, sounds great. But in its opening day, it was worse than Kills. Then its opening weekend it fell 36% on Saturday, 49% Sunday. It literally, more than half of its opening weekend came from Friday, which is a terrible sign. That is a sign that this movie is going to have terrible legs if about half or more than half of your opening weekend comes from day one. But then its weekday numbers were also very concerning. They were very, very low, and to the point where it was beaten by Smile in its first Thursday. It was beaten by Smile, a movie that was already out in theaters for 21 days at that point. 2 weeks more than Ends. So the red flags were really going off at that point, but I was not prepared for week two because it fell 80%, 4/5 its second weekend. I mean, it's Friday dropped 88%. That is mind blowing in the worst way imaginable. I mean, we've seen some big drops this year. Morbius was 74%. There was that. There was the anime movies, Jujutsu Kaisen Zero and Dragon Ball Superhero. They both fell like 75% and 78%. This beat both of them 80%. I believe that is the worst drop ever for a number one movie. I think it's tied with Friday the 13th from 2009. That also fell 80%. I didn't think that would happen. I didn't think we'd have a number one movie drop that hard, but it did. It happened. And it shocked me. It absolutely shocked me. Its third weekend was better, but at that point it didn't matter. It was game over. And then once Halloween was over, well, it was again game even. It was just the final nail in the coffin, and now it's just absolutely dead. And it's only made like 63 million, which means like its opening weekend is so far. I don't think this number is gonna go down by much, but 62.7% of its total gross came from its opening weekend. That is horrendous. That is absolutely atrocious. There's zero positives about that. Absolutely no positives. Now, literally the only thing that's saving this movie is its low budget. It was like 20 million, I think. 20 to 30. I keep saying like different numbers, but it will make its money back. Okay. So it's not the only reason why I don't call it a complete loser is because of that. But I guess we have to ask, why did this happen? Why did it do so lackluster? Especially when compared to the last two Halloween movies. Well, big problem is that Halloween Kills wasn't very good. And when you have like a sequel that comes after a lackluster movie, like the sequel is gonna have to pay for its predecessor's sins. Like it has no choice, really. I mean, and obviously, the hype is gonna be like a lot, I don't know by a lot, but it's gonna be a lot more subdued because of how lackluster the last movie was. And, not only that, but this movie turned out to be even worse than Kills. A lot of people saying this movie was utter trash because the movie kind of like the advertising played it as, oh, the whole thing is going to be about Michael and Laurie, but from what I hear, that's not the case at all. It swerves you. It's about this like worthless, useless love story between like Laurie's like granddaughter or something. And I'm just like, what is this? Like this is not what people wanted to see. And yeah, like word of mouth was just another culprit when it comes to how lackluster the movie did. And a lot of the blame was put on the Peacock release. That's what like the big thing. People are like, this is the reason why it didn't do good or it failed to live up to expectations. And I'm just like, well, obviously with Peacock there was going to be like a negative effect because anytime you put a movie, you put it in theaters and you put it on streaming, negative stuff happens all the time. The movie loses, I don't know how much cash, but it loses cash or loses potential dollars because of that streaming release. But I mean, Halloween Kills still did better than this in a worse environment, a more competitive environment. Because again, last October was like big. It was competitive. We had a bunch of big movies come out. So what's this movie's excuse? Right? This movie has no real excuse. So yeah, overall, Halloween Ends. That low budget is the only thing that saves it from me calling it a complete loser. But yeah, definitely not the ending Halloween deserved. um, just a massive, massive come down from 2018 and even Kills. Like it's really sad, and I kind of think honestly, that Halloween kill, not Halloween kills, Halloween 2018, that should have been a one and done movie. It should have just, the whole story of Michael and Laurie should have ended with that movie. It would have been a great send off. It would have worked out much better than what actually happened, which was just make two really, really lackluster sequels that just kill the brand, just kill the franchise. And that's what happened here. So, yeah, it's a shame. Shame what happened with the new Halloween trilogy, but what can you do? So that's the end of Halloween. And Halloween ends. So, yeah, so things are still not great. I mean, there was like a bit of like a spike with ends, but that spike ended real quick, very fast. But then the 21st, hope arrives, theoretical hope, in the form of Black Adam and to a smaller extent, Ticket to Paradise. But we gotta talk about Black Adam, which, as I already mentioned, was built up as like a blockbuster, like the easily the big movie of October by far and away. Because, I mean, this is like a DC superhero movie. You got The Rock as Black Adam, as a big budget, big old superhero action, set pieces and stuff like that. It had it ticked all the boxes of a potential blockbuster. But did it reach those heights? I mean, with my prediction, I predicted it would open between like 60 to 65 million. I thought it would open bigger than Shazam. Shazam, I gotta find, because, as you know, Black Adam is like Shazam's nemesis in the DC universe. So looking at Shazam, that would be like 55.5 million. No, 53.5 million. And it made like 140 million domestic, 363 million worldwide on a budget of 85 million. Pretty good, by far and away. Not far and away, does not the high. It's far from the highest grossing DC movie, especially compared to the last DC movie that came out before this, which was Aquaman, that made over $1 billion. So yeah, this doesn't look great compared to that, but it was relatively low cost for the genre, and it still did all right, and it had great word of mouth. And it's now getting a sequel that's coming out next year. And after this, they made Black Adam, which is the spin-off of that. And with Black Adam, you know, as I already said, 60 to 65 million. I thought it would have hit that. I didn't think it would have hit the same heights as, say, the Venom movies, which also came out in October, or even Joker, which came out in October too. But it did reach 67 million. It exceeded my expectations just a little bit. My final total was like between 160 and 170. No, 160 and 180, I believe. And it's hit 141 million so far. It should realistically reach that range of 160 to 180, even with Black Panther Wakanda Forever coming out this weekend. So all this sounds great, right? It made well over 100 million. And there's like all this, like, 300 million worldwide. There's like all this talk about it's such a hit. This is what the box office needed so bad. Like, this is a smash hit. Like, take that, Marvel fanboys. Like, stuff like that. And how, like, the movie got, like, trashed by, like, critics, but, like, audiences gave, like, about a 90% approval rating. So there's people just like, haha, take that, you dumb critics. And it was like that whole thing. And people are calling it such a hit. And I'm just looking at the numbers and I'm just like, are we looking at the same numbers here? Because I see a completely different story when comparison to everyone else. Everyone's like raving about how much of a hit it is. And I'm just like, no, it's not. This is not a hit. Because this movie was not cheap. Not in the slightest. It cost 200 million to make. More than double of Shazam. And this isn't even including marketing. And it's only made like 326 million so far. I don't think it's going to reach 400 at its current rate. Especially, again, Black Panther Wakanda Forever. That is going to hurt this movie real bad. And yeah, like obviously less than 400 million on a budget of 200 million is not ideal at all, because some people just don't know how like movie math works. Or they're unaware of how it works. And I'll explain how it works very quickly for those of you who don't know how it works. So, with a movie's box office, it's usually split, some say like 40-60, but I like to see it at 50-50 because it's, more concise. It's more understandable. So you have to split this box office. Uh, actually, wait. There's like the box office, like worldwide, domestic, international, and no, wait. Shoot. I know the formula. It's been a while since I've thought about it, but I've known it for years. But yeah, you split the box office in half. Half goes to theaters, half goes to studios. Roughly. That's how it usually works. And I think maybe before that, I don't know if it's before or after it, I forget. But you have to subtract its box office from you have to take the box office and subtract it by its production budget, which includes marketing. And that tells you how much a movie really made, like in terms of actual profit, like how much the studio really gets from that movie. And ideally, you need to have like a multiple of like from like your budget to your box office, at least like three times your budget, like three anything times three, you're likely gonna get some profit out of it. Obviously, the lower the budget, the more theoretically, the more profitable your movie is going to be. I mean, look at the horror genre. That's a low budget all the time. It's real easy to make a profit with horror. So, but with a movie like this, you need big money. This movie need at least 500, 600 million worldwide to really be a true hit, to make Warner Brothers money, and it's not going to do that. It's not even going to be close to that. So, technically this movie's a loss. This movie's an L for Warner Brothers when it comes to actual, profitability. So, ugh. Now, I did watch the movie. I saw it the same day I Smile, and I thought it was all right. I don't think it was great, not by any means. I thought it was just a generic superhero movie, or like a basic superhero movie that just happened to have a lot of murder in it. That's how I describe it. But it's definitely a watchable movie. It's far from terrible. But yeah, yeah. And what's weird is like its second weekend, it felt like 59%. I'm just like, where the heck did all that positive word of mouth go? Did it vanish? But its third weekend, it felt like 33%, which makes me think that second weekend drop was more doable with, Halloween shenanigans than anything else. But again, this weekend, I imagine the drop is not gonna be pretty for Black Adam. So, uh, uh, um. So yeah, while technically this is the big movie of October, I mean it's the only one that's gonna make 100 million domestic. None of the others are gonna come close to that. But still, it's not a hit. I wouldn't call it's neither a flop nor a hit. It's in that weird middle ground of just I don't even know how to describe it. But it's neither a flop or a hit. Okay. I can't call it either of those things. So yeah, that's Black Adam. Yeah, yeah. So the same weekend as Black Adam, we have Ticket to Paradise here, which is obviously set up as a counter programming to Black Adam, because obviously this was going after a completely different demographic, a completely different market. Now, my prediction, I predicted it would open between like 10 to 15 million, and its final total would be like between like 40 and 50 million, because I was like, it's probably not, it's not gonna do great, but it could have decent legs because again, target audience is older females, and they've been showing up quite a bit recently with movies like Elvis and Where the Crawdads Sing. So I was like, this movie could have legs. Not to mention the competition wasn't exactly stellar, wasn't exactly fierce. So it could do well, and it has been doing well. In fact, it opened above my prediction, like it was 16 million, 16.5. So I was like, okay, all right. And it's made like almost 50 million at this point in time, like as of the 9th of November. So I was like, okay, this is gonna surpass my final, prediction. So that's good. I always like it when that happens. And its budget was like 60 million, which so which isn't ideal. Well, this box office isn't exactly like this isn't exactly like a major hit, but it helps that the movie opened like or overseas like literally a month in advance, and it did pretty darn well to the point where it just needed to do good enough in America to be a success, and it has done good enough in America. So yeah, no real negatives here. And yeah, I'd argue this is a relatively more successful movie in the grand scheme of things than Black Adam, because again, this movie cost way less than Black Adam, and had far less expectations surrounding it. So yeah, I'd argue Ticket to Paradise was the more successful movie of the two when it comes to actual profitability. But yeah, Ticket to Paradise definitely one of the only, maybe the only positive, like truly positive thing to come out of October. Like I have nothing like really negative to say about it, because even if like sure, Halloween Ends will make money, but it's still underperformed pretty badly. And Black Adam was the biggest movie of the month, but it's not going to make money. It's not going to make a profit. But Ticket to Paradise did pretty good. Very good in the grand scheme of things. So, yeah. So like the 21st, like that was like the big weekend of the month, and people are like, "Yes, finally, things are turning around. Things are finally getting good again." And then all that momentum was wiped out the next weekend, which was just a sad, pathetic end to the whole month, where 4 movies came out and none of them did well at all. So let's talk about all of them. First, Call Jane. God. Now, my prediction, when I made my prediction, I knew this movie was not going to do good at all. It barely had any advertising. You know, Elizabeth Banks, she, now had like a really bad reputation after what happened with the Charlie's Angels reboot from 2019. And this movie did cover like a subject that wasn't exactly, appealing to the masses. So yeah, I knew this movie wouldn't do great, and I really lowballed my predictions, or at least I thought I did. I predicted between like 500,000 and $1 million, and maybe like 2 million total. Oh man, it opened with 244,000, literally half of my prediction for its opening weekend, which is that is just absolutely humiliating to say the least. And after that, it's been an utter nightmare for this movie. Fell 76%. It literally lost like 600 theaters like the next week, which never happens. Usually, even if a movie does bad, like say Amsterdam, it still keeps all its theaters for at least 2 weeks, and then it falls off. This couldn't even last 1 week. So yeah, yeah. 76%. It's game over. It's out of theaters at this point. And it's only made like 469,000, which means it won't even match my weekend prediction. Like Jesus. Wow. So I already mentioned like I knew this movie would bomb, and the same why it bombed, well, same reasons. You know, like it had like a bunch of ads at the very very last minute, but like you people need to know your movie exists way before that, like months in advance. You can't just run ads the last week and expect people to show up. I mean, that's what Disney did with the freaking Empty Man in 2020, and it didn't work. So why would it work with this? And this performance, I believe, is proof positive that Elizabeth Banks is absolutely box office poison. She's certified box office poison now because, again, like her reputation was really tarnished because of how she acted with like the reboot of Charlie's Angels, and how she blamed like, oh, those darn white men didn't want to watch my movie, even though women didn't really watch the movie either. And yeah, she screwed herself over. She's her own worst enemy here. And yeah, yeah, this movie was doomed to fail, and it failed miserably. It failed harder than I thought it would. So, which one could, in a backwards way, is kind of impressive. But yeah, Call Jane, absolute fail. Next up, Pray for the Devil. Uh, you know, my expectations were pretty low for this movie. Not as low as Call Jane, but still pretty low. I predicted it would open. It would predict. I. It's wait. I lost my train of thought. I predicted it would open between like 5 to 7 million, maybe around the same as like The Invitation back in August, which isn't a good thing because The Invitation only opened with like 6.8 million and it happened to win the weekend, which is something that should never happen. But Pray for the Devil, it came out like after a bunch of horror movies already came out, like Smile, Terrifier 2, Halloween Ends. I was like, nobody's gonna want to watch this. And to its credit, it did exceed my expectations ever so slightly, opening a little above 7 million. And it will reach my final prediction tally between like 15 to 20 million, because it's almost at 15. So it should reach that at least. It should realistically. And it did have a solid second weekend. Not amazing, but 46% is pretty solid for a movie that's not even good. And the fact that it's a horror movie that's playing after Halloween. So, yeah, I mean, it's not a complete disaster, but I wouldn't call it a hit. I mean, these numbers are still pretty darn low, especially compared to like other horror movies that have come out, this year. So, not much else to say really. It lived up to my expectations, and my expectations weren't exactly high to begin with. So yeah, nothing else to really say about it. The next two movies, well, I guess Call Jane was supposed to be this too, were Oscar bait movies, and I failed at predicting both of them. But first, let's talk about Tar here. My opening weekend was what, I think it was 2 to 3 million. That's what I predicted. I knew it wasn't gonna, you know, reach high numbers because of what the movie was about like, you know, composers and conductors. And I'm just like, that's not exactly a booming genre, when it comes to movies. When it comes to like anything revolving around music, right? And the fact that like this section of film, like Oscar awards type movies, has not recovered at all, since the pandemic. Like it's been a real struggle, and the struggle continues because oof, its opening weekend, or at least its wide release weekend, went pretty bad. It only opened with like $1 million, literally half, less than half of my actual prediction, which is sad. And sure, it felt like 30% the next week, but it doesn't matter at this point. It's game over. It's absolutely game over. And I think my final total, I don't even remember what it was. Was it like 10? It may have been 10. No chance of that happening. So, yeah. I wasn't too surprised about this movie not doing well because again, it had like a real niche a focus, when compared to like say other like music movies or like movies that like revolve around like musical stuff. And again, like the Oscar Beatty movies, they're not it's not happening. They're not coming back the way they're supposed to. So yeah, Tar I kind of predicted its failure. Till I did a little better, but not by much. Like I predicted it would open between like 3 to 5 million. I said in that my video, that I was gonna be optimistic, and this is another reason. This performance is another reason why I should stop being optimistic, because it didn't reach 3 to 5. It only made like 2.7 million, which is very pathetic. And it only felt like 33%. But again, it doesn't matter. It's game over. So the reason why this didn't do well, same reason as Tar. Like, people just don't want to watch these Oscar baity movies. Like, the public just doesn't care. Or maybe the right type of Oscar bait movie hasn't come out yet. A movie that's has like wide mass appeal. And Till and Tar just didn't cut the mustard, and both failed. So yeah, I think my final prediction was like 15 to 20 million. That's definitely not happening now. So yeah, till last week, till Tar, the whole last weekend of October was absolutely pathetic. And that's the end of October. I mean, technically it was better than August and September, but still wasn't a winner. It was far from a real winner. And at this point, it just made me just go, just can 2022 just end already? It just needs to stop. Like, we need to move on to 2023. Things are going to get, obviously, with 2023, things are going to get a lot more interesting. But yeah, 2022 is kind of just crawling towards the finish line at this point. And it's a really sad, really sad to witness. But, November, things are quite a bit rosier in November. I mean, sure, the first weekend was weak as hell. But this weekend we have Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and that should literally make more money its opening weekend than any movie that's come out in the last 3 months. At least. It should. So that's great. That's a very positive sign. They'll definitely stop like the depression. Like the rest of November is kind of meh, whatever, but it's really all about Black Panther Wakanda Forever, really. It's that and nothing else. But I think it will do really well. And it'll finally erase, the depression that was the box office depression that was the last 3 months of, August, September, and October. So that's it. Make sure, that's it. So, um, make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn notifications, share the whole drill. Want to check out more videos like this? Got playlists on the homepage, all previous recap videos I've done on the channel. You want to check out all of them, particularly the ones I made this year. You can go right ahead. There's also box office predictions where I predict box office for movies. I've covered every movie here I've talked about except Terrifier 2. So you want to see like my predictions on those, like my thoughts on these movies, how I thought they would do. You can watch those videos on the playlist. Uh so you go do that. And there's also the canceled series where I go over all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't. A lot of these movies, well, not all of them, but some of these movies I definitely covered on the channel more than once. I covered, what did I cover? I covered Amsterdam. I covered Halloween Ends. I covered that twice. And I also covered Black Adam and Ticket to Paradise. I know I covered all those. So if you want to watch any canceled episodes where I talk about those movies, I guess Smile too, might as well bring that here. I covered that too and canceled. So if you want to watch any of those canceled episodes, and the most recent one I made, which was about the fourth SpongeBob movie and the Avatar Aang movie getting like 2025 dates, like missing, moved up by like a month. So you want to watch that or any other cancel episodes I made, all 166 up to this point, go right ahead. I encourage you to do it. Binge it all from beginning to now. You go do it. Like, and yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.